So I will now invite Jamal Kidwai. He is the founder of Baragaon Weavers and has spent all his life in Jamia. He is an important part of the Jamia Biradari, and as a result, he has been an important part of my life also in Jamia. And he will actually talk about his paternal grandmother today. Go ahead, Jamal.
हाँ, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया शोहिनी, सईदा आपा, मैक्स वेबर फोरम. It's actually a very great, very humbling experience and a very great honor to be present here and speak about Jamia and Jamia women and my grandmother. And actually, as Shohini said, I grew up in Jamia and all. I actually grew up in the houses of all these people who are in the homes of all the people who are mentioned here, Saida. Some of them were Dadi, some of them were Nana, some of them as we were growing up. इन्हीं के सबके घरों में हम पले बड़े. तैयब साहब के परवेज़ चचा वो मुशीरुल हसन के साथ क्रिकेट खेला करते थे स्टाफ क्वार्टर्स में. सईदा आपा. So yeah, and I'm sorry I wasn't here yesterday. हम कुछ थोड़ी ज़ाती हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स चल रही हैं उसकी वजह से. Siddiqa Kidwai, जो हमारी दादी थी, I'm speaking on her. Siddiqa Kidwai was born in 1913 and she passed away 1913, 1914 she was born, and she passed away in 1958. So she had a very short life. I mean, she was 43, 44 when she suddenly died of a stroke. She was born in, as I said, in 1913, and in Baragaon, which is my ancestral village. Baragaon is a small village in Barabanki district of UP, and she belonged to a zamindari family of that area, the Kidwai family. She never had any formal education. She was like, there was a practice or tradition those days. She studied at home. She studied through her ustadnis, and she never went to school. And at a very young age, again, when she was only 20 in 1933, she got married. She was married to her cousin, Shafiqur Rahman Kidwai. Now, Shafiqur Rahman Kidwai was by then an activist. He was a Gandhian. He was one of the persons who was instrumental in setting up Jamia with Zakir Saab, Abid Saab, Mujib Saab. So she was married to him. He was a political activist. He was a Gandhian. He spent many years in jail. He was traveling all over India collecting funds for Jamias. He had so Zakir Sahab, Abid Sahab were the sort of academic lights of Jamia, and they were the academic visionaries of Jamia. And my grandfather, Siddiqa's husband, Shafiq Kidwai, they had imagined Jamia as a progressive nationalist institution, which would in a way, and at the call of Gandhi, which would challenge in a way Aligarh and Aligarh's sort of British background and ideology. So Siddiqa Kidwai got married to him in 1933, and she came and started living in Old Delhi in a place called Matia Mahal, which is still there, and a Balak Mata center runs there. And her first exposure to anything social or political happened because of her marriage to my grandfather and her association with him. He, as I said, was traveling a lot. He was half the time in Delhi, a lot of time in jail. In the meanwhile, my father, they had 4 children. My father was the eldest, and 2 other younger brothers, Razi and Tawfiq, are here, and their sister Itrat, who lives now in Ahmedabad with her children. And so she was also bringing up these children. They were very young. And after independence, my grandfather was asked to contest elections from Ajmeri Gate. And he was very reluctant. In fact, he refused to contest elections, and he went to Indonesia. on a UNESCO fellowship, saying that I don't want to contest election. He was a part of the Gandhian movement who believed staying away from politics, etc., was the norm, and that's the way it should be. But Nehru ji and others insisted that he should contest, and his name was, he was nominated. And while he won the election from Ajmeri Gate in, I think, 1949 or something, after, in the backdrop of partition, in the backdrop of violence, in the backdrop of refugees coming here, a lot of Hindu-Muslim animosity. And my Dadi was taken around campaigning for him, saying that because there was a rumor that he has passed away, he's not around. So she went around endorsing and telling people that he's very much around and vote for him, etc. And he won the election. And then he became the minister of Delhi. He became in charge of several portfolios, and they shifted to Metcalfe Road there. My father and both his children and they were always, my father was admitted, like he always says, that I was deposited in Jamia nursery at the age of 2. And in the second class, when he was in the second class, and all his brothers and sisters were kind of deposited there. They grew up in Jamia, away from their home, from their parents, and most of the time. And then my grandfather, Shafiqur Rahman Kidwai, also suddenly died at a very young age. He passed away in 1953, if I remember correctly, 1953 or 1954. And suddenly there were these 4 children, and she was widowed. But she having been kind of got exposure and partnering my grandfather in all his social and political projects, she came on her own. And she went back to Matia Mahal, lived there, and set up for Jamia as part of the Jamia movement, as part of the Jamia project. She set up which is still there. She set up 5 Balak Mata centers, which is basically setting up very creative centers for Muslim walled city women and their children. The idea was that the women and children should be educated together. There should be a space outside their houses where women can come with their children, be part, because my grandfather had someone who had worked and established the adult education center and was a pioneer in that. So women and children would come in one space, and children would also be taught, their mothers would also be taught, and it would become a safe space for mothers and their children. So it was called Balak Mata Center. And they set up 5 Balak Mata centers in Old Delhi, in the walled city area. Now, the one center is still quite flourishing in Matia Mahal, where she had lived. Subsequently, as I said, that she died in 1948, so she actually had just 5 years of a social and political activism and life. And in the meanwhile, she became so prominent and so active that she became a member of the Delhi Assembly. Then she also became a Rajya Sabha member. But she had become Rajya Sabha member, but within 2 years, she passed away. Now, so this is her brief sort of background and her biographical sketch. And but some of the points I would like to highlight, and what I have, there's nothing written on her. There is only my parents, she died, when my grandparents died, my father was, I think, a teenager. All the other brothers and sisters were not even in their teens. So it's only oral sort of remembrance and history. There are no pictures of her, there are no documents related to her. But what I have heard and what I have gathered over these years is that, she symbolized, in a way, the Jamia and Jamia's ideology and the way, the project of Jamia. She was deeply, like my grandfather, she was deeply religious, but she was also nationalist and secular, in the sense that she would practice her religion, she was very upfront about it, but they both very consciously fought and opposed the denominational Muslim League politics. They were not left. They didn't come from the quote-unquote left ideology, but they were what we call today liberals in that sense. They believed in what, actually both of them believed in the sort of core Gandhian principle of practice what you preach. They would practice they said, we are secular, we are for a secular India, and we will want to work within our community and ensure that there is reform, there is progressive ideas are propagated, and we must work within our the Muslim community can only be can only progress if there is reform from within. No community progresses if there is not reform from within. They are the people who focused on their community, they focused on the ideals of Indian nationalism, secularism, Gandhian principle. They sat very comfortably with Gandhi and his idea of Hindu, whatever his idea of Hindu and his idea of the other thing which I find, and there were a lot of these Jamia people because she was part of the same community, etc. The family became they were so involved with the Jamia and the political and the social projects there that they all of them for their own family took a second seat. They became ministers, they had very important positions, etc. But that position was not, they never ever transferred that position and the benefits of those positions to their children. My father says that he became a leftist. He was part of when he was a teenager, but my grandfather never ever challenged him. In fact, he says what I remember was great arguments with him. He never told me not to do. So this is I'm saying that what I have gathered and the history of Jamia, and when I try and place her, these are some of the sort of symbolic and some of the very clear characteristics which I remember and which I can highlight. So I'll stop here, and if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamal. And particularly since there's not much written material, all this is extremely valuable for us. So now the house is open for questions, so please raise your hand and somebody can give you a mic. Nishat Zaidi. Yeah. Do you have a mic?
My question is for Anisa, because he knows so much about theatre and has been so closely associated with Shamap also. Tell us more about Hindustani theatre. When was it founded? How did it grow? What was the trajectory it followed? Because there is such little material about Qudsiya Banu. Even though, on IPTA people have written and other theatre practices, but we don't know. There's hardly any material available on Hindustani theatre. So tell us more about that.
The group Hindustani Theatre, it was registered in 1955. And I just read the names of the people who were called and who were the part of that. After 10, 20, 15 years, they became the big shots of the theatre in Delhi. Rajendranath was the director of the Shriram Center of Arts and Culture. O.P. Kohli, he was a member who established in Germany and Indian theatre in there. And so many people. It influenced Shama Zaidi also. Because of that, she joined the RADA and came back with right now she is doing a lot of scripting. तो 1955 में ये रजिस्टर्ड हुआ है, बना है. उसके बाद जो उनके ख्वाब थे कि मैं ये भी करूं, उन्होंने जितना थकाया अपने आप को, मतलब पागलपन की हद तक थका लिया. और उनको शायद उनकी ज़िंदगी में जो उनकी मौत आई, वो एक्स्ट्रा बर्डन, जो इतना ज़्यादा बर्डन ले लिया था उन्होंने, उसकी वजह से ही आई. और वो بہت زیادہ انہوں نے تھکا لیا تھا. دیکھیے رائٹنگ ڈاکومنٹ تو کہیں بھی نہیں ہوا ہے. مالک رام صاحب نے جو کتاب ایڈٹ کی ہے جامعہ, اس کے اندر جو کچھ بھی لکھا ہوا اس میں صرف ادبی اور ان کے گھر اور خاندان کی باتیں لکھی ہوئی ہیں, لیکن تھیٹر کے جو ہمارے ہندوستان میں بدنصیبی ہے کہ ڈاکومنٹیشن ہم لوگ نہیں کر پاتے ہیں. جیسے پوری دنیا میں ہوتا ہے, کوئی پلے ہوتا ہے تو ہر چیز کے بارے میں شمع زیدی نے کافی حد تک کچھ چیزیں جو ہیں کمپائل کی ہیں کہ اس کی میوزک کس نے دی, ڈائریکٹ کون کر رہا تھا, اور اس کے جو ہے کمپوزر کون تھے, لائٹنگ ڈیزائننگ کس نے کی, میک اپ میں کون آیا تھا, سیٹ ڈیزائننگ کے اوپر جو اس طرح کی چیزیں ہوتی ہیں کہ جب سیٹ ڈیزائن ہوتا ہے کوئی, تو آج کے زمانے میں اس کی پوری اسکیچ بنا کے رکھ دیے جاتے ہیں کہ آنے والی نسلیں اس کو دیکھیں کہ اس سین کو, کس کریکٹرز کو ہم نے کیسے اس کو بلاکنگ کی تھی. شمع زیدی صاحبہ نے بھی ان کے لیے کوئی اس طرح کی اسکیچ بک نہیں تیار کی, جبکہ وہ بہت ضروری تھا, کیونکہ ایسے ایسے نامور ڈائریکٹرس آئے تھے جو سب ایکسپیریمنٹ کر رہے تھے. امر پالی وغیرہ جیسے پلے کو کر دینا آج کوئی نہیں کر پاتا, شاکنتلم آج کرنے کے لیے کوئی نہیں ہے. اور سب سے بڑی بات ہے کہ ہندوستان کے اندر مغلوں کے آنے کے بعد سے جو سنسکرت پلے ہے اس کو بالکل روک دیا گیا تھا. اس کو دوبارہ اگر شروع کیا ہے تو وہ قدسیہ زیدی تھیں. یہ بہت بڑا کنٹریبیوشن ہے. ہندوستان میں سنسکرت پلے کو ہم بھول چکے تھے, کیونکہ مغلوں نے ہر چیز کو جو پسند کیا وہ یہاں کے, معاف کیجیے گا, مسلمانوں نے اس کو اپنایا. ڈرامہ ان کے یہاں کوئی چیز تھا ہی نہیں, تو اس لیے مسلمانوں کے بیچ میں ڈرامہ کچھ نہیں ہوا. حالانکہ کچھ مسلم بیک گراؤنڈ کے لوگ تھیٹر میں بہت بڑا نام روشن کیا, لیکن وہ جو انفلوئنس تھا پورا مغلوں کا, اس کو توڑا ہے قدسیہ زیدی نے. یہ بہت بڑی بات ہے کہ سارے کے سارے پلیز سنسکرت کے کلاسیکل پلیز تھے. ابھیگان شاکنتلم کو کوئی ٹرانسلیٹ کرنے کی بات بھی نہیں سوچ رکھتا تھا, انہوں نے پروڈیوس کر دیا. میک دوتم, یہ ساری کی ساری چیزیں دیکھیں تو وہ یہ جو کنٹریبیوشن ہے اس کے اثر نو اس پہ ریسرچ ہونی چاہیے. اور مجھے نہیں لگتا کہ شمع آپا کیوں اتنی وہ تھیں, وہ اگر چاہتی تو انفلوئنس کر سکتی تھی ایسے لوگوں سے جو وائس چانسلرس تھے کہ آپ اپنے ڈپارٹمنٹ سے ریسرچ کرائیے. اگر ریسرچ ہوتی ہے تو بات, اور وہ انسان اس کا کام زندہ ہوتا ہے. یہ ہماری بد نصیبی ہے کہ اس کے اوپر ہم نے کبھی سنجیدگی سے کام نہیں کیا. اس اکیلی عورت نے وہ پورا انسٹیٹیوشن کا رول ادا کیا ہے, اس میں کوئی شک نہیں.
I think now there's a, with semi-conferences like this, these ideas will kind of open up. One of the interesting things about the Hindustani theatre, Nishat, was also that it kind of moved away from a kind of amateur theatre to a kind of an urban professional theatre, which was very pioneering at that time. And also the language that was used. So even when these were being translated, Hindi, Urdu, that it could communicate to people. Because if you did Shakuntala in Sanskrit, many people would not kind of understand. The other thing is that there was also a newsletter that was taken out during that time, which was in some ways like one of the first theatre kind of magazines that came out. So the professional contribution, the professional urban contribution to theatre was extremely pioneering. Then getting all these international plays of Brecht and all that, or translating Mritya-Katika, the wide range of plays that were presented, these were very, very pioneering moves by Hindustani theatre. A very big departure, yes, absolutely, in terms of form as well. So, Sayyida had a question.
میرے ایک کامنٹ ہے انیس صاحب کے, جو اتنا اچھا پریزنٹیشن آپ نے کیا ہے, اس میں صرف میں یہ ایڈ کرنا چاہتی ہوں کہ وہ ٹیپو محل واز, جہاں وہ ان کا وہ گڑھ تھا, دیٹ واز ویری مچ دا ہارٹ آف جامعہ. اینڈ وہاں حبیب صاحب ایز ویل ایز ستیو صاحب, دیٹ از مائی ویگ میموری, بٹ آئی تھنک دیٹ دا کنیکٹ واز آلویز دیر. So I think that was very, very important and very nice, how the chair also, complimented what you said. But I want, my question then is to Jamal. And what I want to say is that we have been featuring Siddiqa Kadwai for several years in our, the Muslim Women Forum has done women who have, broken the barriers and gone beyond, like it says, ways into the public sphere. So very important was the whole Matya Mahal thing, and we managed to get a little bit of her writing also there. So can you tell us कि Matya Mahal, what was the connection between Matya Mahal, Purani Delhi, and Jamia now in the banks of the Jamna? Thank you.
What my understanding is that my جامعہ جیسے ذکر ہوا تھا ابھی کہ جامعہ کی بنیاد تو کرول باغ میں رکھی گئی تھی, اور پھر جامعہ جہاں جامعہ میں آیا, تو پرانی دلی میں جامعہ کی لیگیسی تھی، اور کیونکہ ہمارے دادا وہاں بہت ایکٹیو تھے، وہاں سے انہوں نے الیکشن بھی لڑا اور ریفیوجیز کے ساتھ کام کر رہے تھے، اور پھر تو اس وجہ سے یہ لوگ مٹیا محل میں شروع میں آ کے رہے، اور مٹیا محل میں رہنے کی وجہ سے وہاں پہ ان لوگ ہمارے دادا اور دادی نے تھوڑا وہاں کی جو کمیونٹی ہے اس میں کام شروع کیا، اور اس کمیونٹی میں جب کام شروع کیا تو ہمارے دادا تو لارجر پولیٹیکل ایکٹیوسٹ تھے، مگر ہماری دادی کیونکہ مٹیا محل میں رہتی تھیں اور بستی میں رہتی تھیں، تو ون تھنگ وچ ان دونوں میں اور اس زمانے کے لوگوں میں تھی کہ پرسنل واز پولیٹیکل، تو وہ جب باہر جاتی تھیں تو وہاں کی جو خواتین ہیں، عورتیں ہیں جو کہ برقعے میں رہتی تھیں اور باہر نہیں نکلتی تھیں، ان لوگوں نے کوشش کی کہ وہ باہر نکلیں، وہ مین سٹریم کا پارٹ ہوں، تو پھر یہ سوچا کہ کیسے ہوں، کیونکہ ان کو تو گھر پہ بچوں کے ساتھ رہنا ہوتا ہے، تو پھر انہوں نے یہ کہ باہر نکلیں. جیسے ہمیں مٹیا محل کا جو ہم بچپن سے سنتے آ رہے ہیں کہ اس کی فلاسفی یہ تھی کہ عورتوں کو گھر سے باہر نکلنے کی اپرچونٹی ملے، اور باہر جب وہ نکلیں گی تو دوسری عورتوں سے ملیں اور دوسری عورتوں سے تھوڑا وقت آپس میں کھل کے ایک دوسرے سے وقت بتائیں، اور اس ایسے جینٹل طریقے سے، نہ کہ کوئی بہت زیادہ ریڈیکل وے میں، آپ پھر ان سے سوشل اور پولیٹیکل ان کی باتیں، ان کے حقوق کی باتیں، عورتوں کے حقوق کی باتیں، وہ حقوق کس طرح سے آپ کے سماج سے اور بڑے سیاسی اس سے کس طرح سے جڑے ہوئے ہیں، اس پہ بات کریں، ان کو کچھ اس طرح کی سکلز دیں کہ جس سے وہ کچھ جو کمانا چاہیں وہ کما سکیں، ان کے بچے بھی وہاں ساتھ ساتھ سیکھیں اور بچیاں ساتھ ساتھ سیکھیں، ان کو فری کا کھانا ملے. تو یہ وہاں شروع ہوا تھا، اور پھر کیونکہ وہ جامعہ سے اتنے کنیکٹڈ تھیں تو وہ پھر جامعہ کا سینٹر بن گیا وہ، اور وہ سینٹر آج تک چل رہا ہے. اس طرح کے انہوں نے وہاں 5 سینٹرز اس طرح کے بنائے تھے، اور وہ پھر ہمیشہ ایکٹیو رہیں خواتینوں میں، اور خاص طور سے مسلمان عورتوں میں. ان لوگوں کا یہ تھا کہ مسلمان عورتوں میں اور مسلمان کمیونٹی میں ریفارم جو ہے اور پروگریسو آئیڈیاز جو ہیں، وہ ضروری نہیں ہے کہ آپ کے اسلام سے وہ ان میں کانٹرڈکشن نہیں ہے. آپ کو سمے کے ساتھ، وقت کے ساتھ آپ کو آگے چلنا ہے. آپ اپنے تو یہ خود وہ دونوں ہمارے دادا دادی دونوں جو تھے وہ ایز اے وہ داڑھی رکھتے تھے، ٹوپی پہنتے تھے، 5 وقتہ نمازی تھے، مگر گاندھین تھے. تو جی یہ، اور وہ مٹیا محل ابھی بھی چل رہا ہے. اس کا جو ایک لیگیسی ہے، مجھے لگتا ہے کہ اس پہ کام ہونا چاہیے، اور وہ ایک بہت ضروری، اور اس طرح کے ماڈلز اور جگہ کریٹ کیے جا سکتے ہیں جامعہ کے. جی
نہیں تو ہم یہ بتانا چاہ رہے ہیں کہ بالک ماتا سینٹر جو تھا، وہاں سے لڑکیوں کو ہائی اسکول تک گھر میں وہیں پر پڑھایا جاتا تھا، اور اس کے بعد پرائیویٹ امتحان دینے علی گڑھ میں جایا کرتی تھیں. کتنی لڑکیوں نے وہاں سے 10واں پاس کر کے، کیونکہ اسکول جانے کی اپارچونیٹی کبھی ملی نہیں ان لوگوں کو، تو یہاں پرائیویٹ 10ویں تک کا سلیبس ان کو کروا دیا جاتا تھا. اور پھر بس لوڈز آف گرلز یوز ٹو گو ٹو علی گڑھ، اینڈ وہاں پر اس وقت پرائیویٹ ہائی اسکول کا امتحان ہوا کرتا تھا. وہ پاس کر کے پھر وہ مین اسٹریم میں آتی تھیں، 11 12 جامعہ ہی میں پڑھتی تھیں یا کہیں بھی، مگر ایٹ لیسٹ بی ایڈ کر ہی لیا ان لوگوں نے. تو یہ بہت بڑا کنٹریبیوشن ہے آئی فیل مٹیا محل کا. اب وہ سسٹم ختم ہو گیا ہے، اب اس طرح کے پرائیویٹ ایگزامس نہیں ہوتے ہیں، لیکن اس وقت کتنی لڑکیاں ہم لوگوں کی جاننے والی ہیں جو آج کہاں کہاں پہنچ چکی ہیں اس لیول پر. تو یہ آئی تھنک اٹس اے ویری گریٹ کنٹریبیوشن.
I just want to make a kind of a quick announcement that since Asya is still also here and she's part of the panel, so if you have any questions for her, that's also fine.
Girls had some questions for Asya, so
Do you? Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, no, before we move on to the questions for Asia, I just wanted to say that yesterday Francisca Orchini made a very valid point that we need to conceptualize, we need to perhaps theorize what we mean by behind the scene. And the example of Siddiqa Kidwai is another opportunity for us perhaps to rethink about what we mean by behind the scene, because usually we dismiss women who worked behind the scene, but we cannot really ignore the contributions of women because we are so focused on public sphere that we don't realize that what happens visibly in public sphere is often influenced by people who work behind the scene. So, and therefore those women remain invisible. If we have to bring them to the get them some visibility, then perhaps we need to rethink. Because as Jamal was speaking, most of the time it was like, because my grandfather was there, you know, so that is the attitude that we normally have, but perhaps we need to rethink. And because obviously she became Rajya Sabha member, she must have done something, she must have been active. Those contributions need to be discussed and debated.
But I guess that's why he made a presentation on
yes,
her
exactly,
and not on him.
That's yeah.
Actually, yeah, I completely agree with you. I take your point, and I think मैं जो कोशिश यही कर रहा था कि वो she came on her own after my grandfather's death. तो उनका जो भी contribution है वो उनका sole contribution है, और हमारे
But something changes.
It changes, yeah. I mean, she wasn't actually, I don't know. You see, these things are a bit, I feel they are a bit complex.
Yeah.
That if she wasn't married to my grandfather, maybe she would be a different, I mean, maybe she wouldn't have got all these opportunities, though she had all that talent in her. And there may be many other women who would have had potential, but because of certain, so what Siddiqa Kidwai was trying to do was to ensure that any woman who has any potential gets an opportunity to explore that potential, rather than it remains hidden and doesn't get an opportunity, like herself. I think these people were very conscious that because if they hadn't got married, she may not have got all those opportunities. So it's a bit, I think we need to keep that in mind, yeah.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I think Jamal's presentation was very interesting, but as he said, he was constrained by the fact that there's no documentation, and that whatever you were able to put together and present today is really based on your conversations with your family, with your father, and so on. So I think this actually takes us back to the point that was discussed yesterday, which is the oral archives. I think what we clearly need, and if we want to really bring out the role of these women behind the scenes, the point that was just made. In fact, I had also made that point that most of the women that we are talking about, not just your grandmother was obviously quite a public personality. She wasn't quite behind the scene, even if she came on the scene after the passing of her husband. But the fact is that she was not quite like many other women that we have talked about yesterday. But the point is that despite this, there's so little known about her. Even though she set up these Balak Mata centers, she was a member of the Rajya Sabha, she was a member of the Delhi Assembly, and so on. So I think the oral archives, the need to document this is extremely important. I mean, for example, the Nehru Museum, as we know, has this whole project on of oral archives, of interviews of people who have been, giving material, their experiences and so on. So something of that kind needs to be done. Obviously, we cannot imagine doing something on the scale that Nehru Museum, now called the Pradhan Mantri Sangrahalaya, has done. But at least on a modest scale, I think the oral archive really has to be built up if we want to retrieve the lives and contributions of these very remarkable women.
And I would like to offer the Premchand Archives as a place that can do this. So please feel free if you can raise the funds.
All I can say is that if Mushir was around, it would surely have been done.
Yes, because Mushir would have given us much more money to build the archives, and we would have been able to do it. No, but I'm very happy to start this if we can raise a bit of funds.
Hi everyone, my name is Anab. I'm a student at Jamia, scholar. My question is for Asia. So she is talking about Mushir Fatima, who established this nursery, Montessori, and a lot of women that we spoke about yesterday also were writing for children. Begum Asfa was writing for children. We know Qudsiya Zaidi was writing for children. So was there any overlap, any correspondence between other women at Jamia and Mushir? And another point, just to take forward what Nishat ma'am was saying earlier, is that maybe we need to think about public sphere in a different term, like Balak Mata Center. It's out of the home, but it's not public, so to say. So there is like an in-between, between the private sphere, there's a public sphere, and there's an in-between space that was created by these women for other women. So the idea of public sphere itself and the way we define public sphere could also be maybe looked at. Yeah, just Asya, if you could throw some light on that. Thank you.
Asya, could you hear the question? You'll have to unmute yourself, Asya. Because we can't hear you. Just 1 second. Do you think that we may have muted her from here? Okay, so we are going to try and we are going to remedy that, Asya. Sorry, it's not your fault. It's something that we've done here.
Okay. Can I still speak?
Yes,
Am I audible
yes.
in any way?
You are now audible.
Okay.
Please
Okay.
go
No,
ahead.
I think that Mushir Fatma did know a lot of women who were affiliated with Jamia, especially in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But I don't have, written documentation to prove their exchange, like letters or something like that. She certainly shared with these other women her interest in children and childhood education. I mean, that I'm not going to deny. And I think that was something that is also there in this conference, that the interest in children and education was part of Jamia's mission and how they viewed the whole idea of nation building. So she was, she was certainly, interacting with, all these women in the 50s and the 60s. But I'm a historian and I always seek evidence, and I couldn't find any concrete material evidence. I found some oral I did some interviews about the experiences of Jamia nursery of people who had grown up, and I used that for this paper. But I would definitely agree that there is an overlap in concern. There is definitely an overlap in concern about the well-being of children. And, children was very much at the center of how education was conceived in this early post-colonial period. And that was part of the whole idea of nation building. Yeah.
Yes, there is.
I just want to say that I have very distinct memories as a child of Mushir Fatma. And the thing, I'm also thinking that Asya said there is no documentary evidence and letters and so on. And I think we'll have to delve into the letters that Sughra Mehdi has published. And I think, and I know that they were all very close. Mushir Fatma, Sughra Mehdi, Saleha Abid Hussain, they were in and out of each other's houses. And Saleha Abid Hussain was like a mentor to all of them. So I think we'll just need to, I fault myself because I didn't even look very carefully at that, but letters have been preserved, and both Saleha Abid Hussain and Mushir Fatma were prolific letter writers. So I think there might be some documentary evidence that Anab was talking about. That's all. Thank you.
So now
Thank
you know
you.
who to share the letters with if you find them, Sayyida.
So since yesterday, I think we've been circling back to this question of the archive, and Zoya Appa just mentioned it. Nishat has been talking about things happening behind the scenes when it comes to women. And as someone who works on women's writings and women's history and women's lives and women's social work, I think that we need to, I mean, letters are now, I think Asya might back me up on this, letters are now standard, sources that historians do use, as well as I think literary historians. But I think we need to go beyond that now and consider things that we would not have previously considered sources, wherever available. So for instance, in the context of Hyderabad, I have found women's Hisab ki kitab very useful as a source. So literary women, and this idea came to me from the essays of one of the writers that I was researching, who extends Virginia Woolf's argument, about a room of one's own, and extends it to other aspects of women's lives and the way they use space and the way they write on, as Toni Morrison had once said, on the edges of the day, on the edges of time in some ways. And what I found is that women's notebooks, their Hisab ki kitab, which will have a recipe on one side and a grocery list on the other, will have between those pages the drafts of essays, the drafts of a speech that they are going to make at a school board meeting, or they're going to have, even titles of essays that have been rehearsed. So I think we really need to expand our idea of what goes into the archive.
Yes.
I know these things are not always available, but whenever they are, I think we need to consider the possibilities beyond economic and social history.
Absolutely, and I think it's really important to open up the idea of the archives. How do we imagine the archives and what could constitute it? So really, that was very valuable. Thank you for that. No, I think
I was saying
yes, now
that you
we'll
can
be
get
able
a
to hear you.
whole lot of information from the diaries that many women keep. And there was a period when they all kept their diaries. Every day they would write down, what happened, what they did, and things like that. And that would come as quite a lot of information.
Yes, absolutely.
Hello,
Yes, go
I'm
ahead.
Zeba. I'm a scholar from Jamia. I have a question with Anis Sahab. Anis Sahab, मैं चाहती हूँ आप थोड़ा सा इस पे भी रोशनी डालिए जो बेगम सैदी का जो एसोसिएशन था बर्टोल्ट ब्रेट से उन्होंने कॉकेशियन चौक सर्कल को प्रोड्यूस किया था, शायद उसका नाम उन्होंने सफ़ेद घेरा दिया था, तो उसके ऊपर थोड़ा सा मैं जानना चाहती हूँ, प्लीज़ इफ़ यू कैन.
ब्रेख्त के और भी प्लेज उन्होंने किए थे, लेकिन सबसे ज़्यादा ये मकबूल ये हुआ था क्योंकि ये प्रोड्यूस हुआ था और इसके अंदर जितने भी प्रोफेशनल्स उन्होंने शामिल किए थे वो प्रोफेशनल्स की वजह से इसका जो है असर काफ़ी ज़्यादा पड़ा था. कॉकेशियन चौक सर्कल को उन्होंने जो रूप दिया था उसमें सबसे बड़ी बात ये कि जितने कैरेक्टर्स इससे पहले ट्रांसलेट लोगों ने किए थे वो उन्होंने वही जर्मन नाम रखे थे. इन्होंने सारे के सारे नाम जितने भी प्लेस खुशिया जैदी ने किए उसमें खूबसूरत अंदाज़ ये था कि वो सारे नाम जो यूरोपियंस हुआ करते थे जो हम प्रोनाउंस करते में हमें एक्टर्स को भी दुश्वारी होती थी और ऑडियंस को भी होती थी, उन्होंने उस भरम को ख़त्म कर दिया था कि वो हिंदुस्तानी नाम देने शुरू कर दिए थे. खालिद खाला देख लीजिए, आप कुछ भी देख लीजिए, उनके डॉल्स म्यूज़ियम में देख लीजिए, डॉल्स हाउस में देख लीजिए. तो ये उनका था कॉकेशियन चौक सर्कल जो कहानी है कि मतलब एक माँ और बच्चा और उसके बाद वो सारे का सारा था. और सफ़ेद कुंडली के नाम से उन्होंने उसको किया था, सफ़ेद कुंडली, क्योंकि वो चौक का घेरा बन जाता है. तो ब्रेख्त तो उस वक्त जो पूरी दुनिया के अंदर उनको हाथों हाथ लिया जा रहा था और एक नई आवाज़ थी, एक नया अंदाज़ था उनका और वो बिल्कुल खुल के बात करते थे. ख़ास तौर से हमारे हिंदुस्तान में जो प्लेज हुए थे और कुर्सी आबा ने भी पता नहीं क्यों उनकी जो उसके बीच की पोइट्री थी उसको कम कर दिया था, जबकि वो बहुत जानदार, मतलब पोइट्री जो भी ब्रेख्त की जहाँ भी प्लेस में पोइट्री है और एलिनेशन का की थ्योरी उनके पास थी कि चीज़ों को मतलब कि ड्रामा करो और ऑडियंस को दिखाओ कि हम ड्रामा कर रहे हैं, ज़्यादा जज्बाती होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. ये एक बहुत बड़ी चीज़ थी जो ब्रेख्त लेकर आए थे कि मतलब हम प्ले कर रहे हैं, आप हम पर वो इतना भरोसा मत कीजिए, बी क्रिटिकल, इन्वॉल्वमेंट आपको होना चाहिए, लेकिन ये सोच कर कि हम हमारे नशे में आप मत आइएगा. یہ جو چیز تھی خصوصی آبا نے اس سے بہت متاثر ہوئی تھیں, اور انہوں نے کہا تھا کہ ہمارا ہندوستان کا تھیٹر بھی ایسا ہونا چاہیے کہ ہم بلا وجہ آڈینس کو مطلب ہر چیز میں ہم ہندوستانی اور اردو والے جذباتی ہو جاتے ہیں کہ آنسو نکل آئے, ارے صاحب کیا ایکٹنگ تھی, یہ کیا بات ہوئی. تو مطلب عورت کو بہت غریب دکھانا اور بے بس دکھانا, اور ہے بھائی کیا اچھا رول کیا ہے, بھائی بے بس دکھا کے کیوں اچھا رول ہو سکتا ہے. یہ جو چیزیں تھیں وہ قصیہ زیدی نے مطلب کہ پورے تھیٹر میں آپ دیکھیں گے تو یہ میسج ان کا ہے, بہت اسٹرانگ میسج تھا عورت کو لے کر, بچوں کو لے کر, سماج کو لے کر, بٹوارے کو لے کر اور حقوق کو لے کر. تو یہ کہانی بھی تو حقوق کی ہے نا, کوکشن چوک سرکل کی پوری, اسی لیے شاید ان کو پسند آئی تھی اور بہت اچھے انداز میں کیا تھا. اس کی مطلب کاسٹیوم اور میک اپ اور لائٹنگ اور ہر چیز, کیونکہ تھیٹر میں ہم لوگ جب دیکھتے ہیں تو لائٹنگ کا بھی بہت اہم رول ہوتا ہے, میک اپ کا بھی بہت اہم رول ہوتا ہے, کاسٹیوم کا تو خاص طور سے. تو وہ شمع آپا کی وہ کمزوری تھی کہ وہ زیادہ تر پلیز میں جو بہت اچھے ہوئے اور اچھے اثر ہوئے, اس کی وجہ یہ تھی کہ کاسٹیومس وہ خود ڈیزائن کیا کرتی تھی, جو کہ اردو والوں کی جو تھیٹر جتنے بھی سوچ ہمارے ہیں ان سب چیزوں کی اتنی اہمیت نہیں جاتی ہے, وہ جذباتی اداکاری تک ہی محدود رہتا ہے. جبکہ اچھا جو تھیٹر ہوتا ہے, صحت مند جو تھیٹر ہوتا ہے, اس میں ان سب چیز پہلوؤں کا بہت اہم رول ہوتا ہے, جو کہ انہوں نے قصیہ زیدی نے ہمیشہ ان چیزوں کو اہمیت دی اور اس کے اثرات بھی رہے. تھینک یو.
I'm Vinod Ambedkar University. My question is for Asiya. In your paper, you kept referring to, the curriculum and the pedagogy as progressive. Yeah, and the Montessori education is progressive. Montessori education as progressive. And, it was moving a little away from the nationalist discourse and something on the progressive. So I was wondering, what was this progressive element? Was it actually, critically questioning patriarchy? Was it questioning fatherhood? Was there a discourse between the father and the child and early influence? What was the thing that was progressive? Because you kept referring to the term progressive in the Montessori thing. So there must be something traditional and there's something progressive, and yet you don't see any male teachers in the early education scenario. Even now, the training is that we don't have many men actually entering that frame of early childhood care and education, but we often say that. So I was just curious to know what was that minor literature that you were sort of referring to in that. Thanks.
If I could just tag on something to that, Asiya, to what you've just been asked, because at one point you talked about how Dr. Zakir Hussain had some reservations about the Montessori system being a little bit rigid, and he believed in something that was progressive. And I was wondering if you could kind of explain to us the differences between the two, because from what you described, it didn't seem like very rigid, because if they were, or was it her innovation with the Montessori method that made it like that? So a little bit of clarity on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question. So that quote is, that is actually from a small piece of writing that I found by Mushir Fatma in the journal Jamia that was published in 1970 on the Jamia nursery, which is the only piece that I found in my research. That is actually her writing. And there she says, she basically sort of says that she uses progressive in a very specific sense in that paragraph to refer to something that is somewhat contrary to the Montessori method. And I think that over there, progressive, I don't want to read too much into it because I don't have more illustration of what she was saying. But given that it is in the context of Montessori method, there is this notion in the Montessori method that it was compared to Froebel, which was very popular at the time when Montessori made her innovations in educational method. It was more focused on discipline and sort of teaching the child that, how child can learn through everyday tasks. Whereas the Froebel method was based more on play. Montessori famously sort of used to focus on tasks instead of toys, in nursery. And so I think that might imply the notion of rigidity, whereas, for somebody like Zakir Hussain, But you also see this in Mushir Fatma's own writing, that the idea of play is very important. And she says at one point that, one of the people that I interviewed about the Jamia nursery, she says that they also played with dolls. Now, dolls is a classic non-Montessori instrument in a nursery. You would not find dolls. So it's. I think that is what they mean when they talk about rigidity. And the other thing about Montessori is that in her own life, she was very particular about authorizing how changes take place to her method. And she had a lot of serious disagreements with people who sort of, went too far or departed too far from how she, did her education and how the teaching of the child should be done. And so she had a little bit of a reputation of being an orthodox. In her own life itself, that had happened, and the disagreements had taken place in places like US and Germany, where they were where teachers were innovating. But there has been research on the Montessori method after her death in 1952 in all kinds of national contexts that show that educators were forced to innovate and to adjust because they didn't have similar resources, they didn't even have similar kinds of context to actually implement it in exactly the same way. So I think the idea of rigidity comes from Montessori's own image of being very orthodox about controlling what is the Montessori school and what is the Montessori method. Like I said, even today, if the nursery doesn't say the Montessori nursery, it's not recorded as a Montessori nursery.
Right.
But in terms of progressive, I also thought about this because progressive itself was, what is progressive education is, I have been looking for literature on that ever since I came across that quote. And progressive education, it seems, emphasized freedom and creativity of the child. There is one understanding, that is one understanding of the progressive. And that you find in Jamal Fatma's writing very clearly. So I think, what is, progressive is, I take that question and I think it's a work and, it's something that, we have to figure out. There are different meanings on how educators used it to refer to what progressive meant. But it does not refer, I think, over here necessarily to gender relations.
Thank you so much, Asiya. You wanted to make a quick point about the archive? Sure, go ahead, and then I'll take the last question. No problems.
Thank you. My name is Ruth. I'm from Mizoram. I work with Muslim Women's Forum. When you talk about this, putting up these archivals and all, and you talk about the importance of finding the letters, correspondence between these women or maybe with their members of their family. What we found when we are doing K.A. Abbas's work was that also the importance of collecting like expenditure of these people. I know back in the days it was very common for people to keep a list of their expenditure.
Yeah, that's what you were also talking about.
Yes, and this man, he wrote stories about a young man. Yes. Anapai, yes. That story has a list of groceries, and finally this man bought a bottle of sleeping pills, sleeping pills, and after that there's no more entry. So we can find out the journey of what this man has gone through just based on the expenditure, like she was talking about in the back of the recipe or something. So I think that should also be something, because I think many of these women, their family members are here. I'm sure somewhere they might be still keeping some of those. Yeah,
to kind
so
of
it
collect
may be
all
important.
those material things.
Nothing is too less at this point. I think we can all decide later, maybe do a little bit of a research in that direction as well.
Thank you so much, Ruth. That's wonderful. So we will end the session with a question from Fatima Rizvi.
I'm not really asking a question, just a comment.
You can make a comment, yes. Make it wonderful, because we are ending the session with it.
Thank you. No, I just thought what came across through this session was that, you know, these ventures at education through Asia's paper and through what Jamal said about Balak Mata education, different ventures on children's education were going on in different parts of the city and all affiliated, of course, with Jamia. So that is a wonderful thing, and I think it talks a lot about this whole idea. I think women were more in this, that's my personal opinion, women were more in this because it was generally believed that the woman could nurture the child and, you know, raise him or her to do better things on the national front. And that is why there were more women and fewer men in it. That's very important. और अजीज़ साहब के लिए मेरा, अनीस साहब के लिए मेरा ये है सवाल आपसे है कि मेरे ख्याल से नियाज़ हैदर साहब भी लिखते थे उनके अडेप्टेशंस के लिए, ख़ास तौर से ब्रेख्त के अडेप्टेशंस के लिए नियाज़ हैदर साहब ने लिखा है, कॉम्पोजिशंस किए हैं, सही है ना?
जी बिल्कुल सही है। और शकुंतला का पैरेलल तर्जुमा भी उन्होंने किया था।
जी जी जी।
खुशा जैदी ने कहा कि इसमें से जो सीन तुमने ज़्यादा अच्छा लिखे हैं वो यहाँ शामिल कर दिए जाएंगे। इस हद तक दोस्ती थी।
जी जी। और नज़में भी कंपोज करते थे।
नज़में तो खैर वो शायर थे ही।
नहीं, उनके ड्रामों के लिए, अडेप्टेशंस के लिए भी वो कंपोज करते थे।
जी 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 जी। क्योंकि शायर तो बहुत ज़्यादा थे और शायद वो ऐसे थे कि शायद हिंदुस्तान में वैसा कोई होगा नहीं। 1-2 मिनट
जी जी बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। जी बहुत शुक्रिया, बहुत शुक्रिया।
बहरहाल वो नियाज़ हैदर की तो ऊपर तो कुछ अलग ही कुछ करना चाहिए। इब्राहिम अल काजी साहब एक बार फंस गए थे। बहुत बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट है, हिंदुस्तान का सबसे बड़ा ड्रामा होना था, अंधा युग, महाभारत के ऊपर। और वहाँ अर्जुन रथ चला रहे हैं, कृष्ण कहते हैं कि तुम रथ ठीक से चलाओ, कहाँ पत्थरों पे चला रहे हो, पथ पे चलाओ। तो खींचते हैं लगाम और कहते हैं अर्जुन भगवान कृष्ण से कि तुम रोक सकते थे, तुम भगवान थे और मैं पत्थरों पर नहीं चला रहा हूँ, ये नरमुंड है, इंसानों की खोपड़ियाँ हैं और तुम इस खोपड़ियों के लिए तुम जिम्मेदार हो। अब वहाँ प्ले रुक जाता है, तो प्ले आगे कैसे चले, कौन सी म्यूज़िक हो। उस वक्त सबसे बड़े म्यूज़िक डायरेक्टर पंचन पाठक अलकाजी साहब के साथ थे। कहा कुछ म्यूज़िक बनाओ, वो भी नहीं बना। नियाज़ हैदर आ गया, उन्होंने कहा कि मैं बहुत परेशान हूँ। तो उनका अच्छा लाओ कागज़। पूरा सीन सुनने के बाद उन्होंने जो लिखा 2 लाइनें कि ये बीच में डाल दो, उसके बाद प्ले चला दो। पंचन पाठक हिचकियाँ लेके रोने लगे। ज़िहानत देखिए, उन्होंने क्या लिखा, कड़ल कड़ल खड़ल खड़ल घड़ल घड़ल हड़ल हड़ल रथ चले हड़ल 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 हड़ल। ये ओम पुरी ने अपनी आवाज़ में किया और अंधा युग प्ले आगे बढ़ गया। जीनियस।
बहुत बढ़िया, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। Thank you so much. I think we should wrap up the session right now. And I think what has made me very happy today is to be attending a seminar on Jamia outside of Jamia. Now we know that Jamia has entered the public sphere in very productive and generative ways. Thank you very much for organizing this.